Greetings. In this video, we will create the pieces that we need for our helicopter. These in combination with our existing bricks will give us everything that we need. We're going to build this angled 2x2. We'll create a 1x6 plate, a 2x8 plate, a 1x6 plate. We'll create the actual rotor, and then we'll create a plate with a post that the rotor will sit in. Let's begin by building our angled 2x2 brick. I am going to just begin from the start. If you have your 2x2 unbeveled, you can begin there, but this will be a good refresher, a good review. The first thing I'll do is jump into the side view. And if your pivot isn't at the bottom, I'm going to center that just so we can refresh. We'll hit the D key to be able to move that, and then we'll hold the V key, middle mouse button snap so that it's on the bottom. Tap the D key again to get out of there, and then we can grid snap up onto the ground plane. The reason we want to do that is so that we can work in the perspective view and that we can grid snap here in the perspective view without the peg moving down half a unit. So I'll hold down the X key and I'm just going to grid snap this into a quadrant here. We'll hit Command D and I'll grid snap it over 4 units. We'll select both and I'll hit Command D to duplicate. Now if I just hold the X key, they'll both snap to the same position. So I'll tap the Z arrow, so now we're constrained on the Z. And now when I grid snap, they both maintain that value. We'll grab all 4 of these. They are separate at the moment. We'll hit Combine. Even though they're combined, you know that the vertexes aren't welded, so we'll grab all of those vertexes. We'll come up to Edit Mesh and we'll hit Merge. Now if we were to test, we can see that this is a single piece. So we have our top, and now we'll create our interior bottom top. We'll come into the channel box, and we want this to be 4 and 4, right? We have 4 edges. If we were to count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've created a new plane with 4 edges by 4 edges. And then we want it to be the same size, so we'll go 8 and 8. It's 8 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8. And then our fraction here will be 0.8 on the X and 0.8 on the Z. And this gives us the size of that interior piece, right? That is the size of the interior top. And we're going to move it down 0.8 units, down negative 0.8 units. So it's sitting negative 0.8 units from the exterior top. We will also recall that we need to reverse this, so we'll come to Mesh Display and reverse so that when we're looking up at the brick we see those faces. Now let's extrude this one. We'll double click the outer edge. We'll come to Modeling Toolkit, we'll hit Extrude, and this is a 4, right? We moved it down 0.8. Now we're extruding 4, so it's a total of 4.8, and that is the number we're looking for on our top exterior, and we'll extrude those outer edges, and in this case this is negative 4.8, and so those are sitting, if we look in the side view you can see that they match here at the bottom. We'll come back, we'll grab them both. In object mode, we'll hit Combine, and then we'll double click the outer edge, shift double click the inner edge, and we'll hit Bridge. And if that doesn't bridge exactly, you'll have to do pairs at a time. But there is our 2x2 unbeveled brick. And if you haven't been saving your unbeveled versions, you'll want to, because as we move forward, a lot of the variations that we create will be begun with a unbeveled brick. So you'll want to save that. Now, if we look in the side view, we know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units on this half. And if we count down 4 units, this would give us a diagonal that's 45 degrees, and that's what we're after. So we're going to put an edge right on this grid, an interior and exterior edge loop. So I'll come back into object mode. We'll come over to the multi-cut, and you'll recall that the control key allows us to create a loop all the way around the mesh. Now there's nothing for me to snap to in this mode, so I'm just going to lay that out there. Let's just take a look to make sure we understand. We've just created this edge loop that goes all the way around the exterior box. I'm going to double click that edge, and we can move that edge, right? But we'll come back into this side view, and with that Y arrow active, the green arrow is now yellow, we're constrained. Now I can hold down the X key and middle mouse button snap, and now that's snapped exactly on that grid. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and if we draw a line from this point to this point, that'll give us the 45 degree that we're after for our angled brick. We also need an edge loop on the interior box. So best to do it in object mode. Come to multi-cut, hold down the control key, and I'm just going to put it anywhere. And we can see if we come to the side view, there is that interior edge loop. I'll double click it, and we'll just do the exact same thing. We'll make sure this Y translate arrow is yellow, and we'll hold down the X key and middle mouse button. And now we've got edge loops both on the exterior and the interior. And this quadrant here is exactly square, and we'll be able to match this point to this point and create our angle. So let's come in and we'll delete these faces, right? So we just right click, choose face, drew a bounding box, and we'll hit delete. And if we look here now in the perspective view, we're just going to bridge. We'll just bridge these edges, and that will give us the slope that we are after. I'll click this edge, shift double click this edge, shift click, shift double click, and then we'll hit bridge. Now we've got a blank space here, so let's double click this edge. And this is actually a quad. Even though it looks like a triangle, there are, if we count the edges, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will be a good candidate for the mesh fill hole. And we've got a quad here, and we could have done it at the same time, but we'll just double click that edge, gives us all 4 of these edges, and we'll come to mesh fill hole. Now we'll do the same thing with the exterior. I'll click this edge, shift double click, shift click, shift double click. We'll hit bridge. Now we've got that exterior. We'll double click this edge, and we'll do them at the same time now. We'll double click this edge, and we'll come to mesh fill hole, and here is our angled brick, unbeveled, and you'll want to save this one because from here we could do a 1, we could make it 3 or 4, so we can use this as a starting point for some additional sloped bricks with different peg numbers. But we have the final task, because if we hit the 3 key, we see that that's really soft because we're going to be subdividing or smoothing once. We have to come and select all the exterior edges. Now it's tedious when we're doing it on a brick, but not only is it tedious in this case, it's a little bit of a challenge to think about what is the edge that we need selected. So I'll try to go through this methodically, and if you need to stop and rewind, or you miss an edge or have a wrong edge, you just hit undo and come back and remake the selection. So I'll double click that edge and that edge, right? So we've got the top so far. And we need that edge and that edge, so we've got it all the way around. We'll come and get the corner edge, and I'm just going to shift click, and yeah, we'll double click that around, shift double click, nope, so we don't want to double click this here. We'll get one more, shift double click, that'll allow us to do it. So sometimes it grabs the edges in the wrong direction. So if that happens, just undo and make the manual selection. We'll select across there. We need these. I'll double click, shift double click. Nope, so that's going around that way as well. So we'll manually select, shift double click, that got it. So we've got those edges running around. We want this edge, this diagonal. This edge, that diagonal. We've got that diagonal and that edge, that diagonal, that edge. We need this diagonal running up. We need the edge on the front interior, these 4. Now I missed those middle 2. And that means when I missed, I might have selected something on the other side. So we'll have to constantly come around and look. And we want this edge on the front as well. I'll shift clicked all around. And I think that's it. Let's hit the 4 key. We've got the whole bottom, we've got those diagonals, we've got the interior. Oops, and I see something I missed. We want this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. So once again, we'll come to 4. And what we're doing is just selecting all of our corner edges plus the diagonals. And that looks about right. Again, very obvious. I want these edges across the front. So again, a little bit of a challenge to make that selection, but we'll hit bevel, and we know our fraction is 0.2 and our segments are 2. And then the trick here is just hit the 3 key and see if we missed anything. And I had something extra selected here. So here when I hit the 3, I can see that shouldn't have been selected. So I'll hit undo. We'll go back and make sure we're in the 1 and get far enough, and then I'll control deselect, control deselect, control deselect. Now I drew a bounding box to get rid of those little selections, and I may have deselected something off the back, and it looks like I did. And let's hit the 4 key and we'll try this again. This interior got deselected when I was deselecting the others. Okay, let's try that again. I think that's it. We'll hit bevel. We know that it's 0.2 and the segments are 2. And we'll hit the 3 key and we'll dolly around, and that looks like it was it. So a bit of a challenge making the selection, but right, you can tell, just click off. Maybe we want to even just evaluate it without the wireframe on. So there is our 45-degree angled 2x2 brick. Give that a shot, and when we're done, we'll pick up in just a moment and we'll create the rest of the pieces for the helicopter. Be right back. Greetings, welcome back. Let's delete all of our history before we proceed. That will allow us to get rid of these transform nodes. We'll just delete those. We've got our shape here. The pivot is sitting in the middle, so let's also jump into the side view. We'll tap the D key. We'll constrain ourselves on the Y, and then V key middle mouse button will snap to the bottommost vertex. Tap the D key to get out, and then we'll grid snap it up onto the ground plane. And there we have it, and then we'll set it on a layer and just hide that away. We have completed this piece, and so we'll move on to the next in order, which is our 1x6. So we'll hide these and we'll come back with our peg, and I'm just going to proceed from a build. I think this is really good practice for you. So we'll come to our Edit Duplicate Special dialog box. We'll hit Reset out of good habit. We're building a 1x6. So that means our number of copies is 5. And if we're building in this direction, this would be the -Z, so we'll put in -4 because our peg is 4 units. And we'll hit duplicate, and there is our 1x6 top. These are separate meshes. So we'll come here and we'll hit combine. We'll right click and choose vertex. Grab all those vertexes, come to edit mesh, merge. And now those are all welded. And this is a singular piece. If you jump into one of the orthographic side views, you can see that the pivot for the new shape is in the middle of the shape, right? It's not sitting on the plate. It's halfway in the Y direction. So let's put that at the bottom of the plate. That'll make things easier. So we'll tap the D key. Once again, we'll move that up. And then I can just hold down the V key, middle mouse button, or I could have hit the X key, middle mouse button, since there's also a grid intersection there. I'll tap the D key to get out of that. And now we can grid snap this right to the middle. So it's sitting right on the ground plane. If you look in the perspective view, we can see it's running the full length of the grid. It matches that, and it's in the center. And we just did that so that when we create our plane, we can just scale our plane up also from the middle. We'll create our plane. By default, that comes in 10 and 10. And so let's just take a moment here to review. We're matching, first of all, the number of edges. So we've got 2 here. And so we'll say that would be 2. And then how many do we have here? Well, that's 12. So we'll come and type in 12. So now we've matched the edges. We have 2 edges here and then 12 edges, which matches this shape. And then now we'll match the size. And what is the size? Well, we can see there's 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 24 units in this direction. So we'll say 4, that matches the width, and then we'll say 24, which matches the height. And now our new bottom top, our interior top plane is the same exact size, and now we're free to come in and put in our fractions. We know that when we have one peg, the scale x will be 0.6, and then I've calculated the scale z in this case will be 0.933. If we look in the top view, we grab both of those, you can see that that is equidistance. That new interior top plane is offset or equal all the way around with the value of 0.6 on the x and scale z 0.933. Quick review, we had 4 and 24 for the size and 2 and 12 for the divisions or number of edges, 0.6 scale x, 0.933 scale z. And now we'll position these and bridge them together. So with my new plane, we're going to move this down negative 0.8 on the y. So there it is sitting negative 0.8 units. And we'll reverse this. We know we'll come to Mesh Display Reverse so that from the bottom we can see that interior plane. And let's go ahead and extrude it. We'll come to the edge here and we'll come and we'll hit extrude, and this is also going to be 0.8. Remember that our plate is 1.6, so we've moved this down 0.8, and to match that 1.6 we'll extrude it and move it another 0.8 down. 0.8 and 0.8 gives us our 1.6. So there is the height of our interior box. We'll come and grab this exterior edge on the top. We'll hit extrude, and this is our total distance, which will be 1.6. Oops, on the Z, I typed it in the wrong field, and I went in the wrong direction. Negative 1.6, sorry about that. And this is exactly the same distance. And if we look in the side view, we can verify that they end at the same place. We'll finish the thought. We'll come in and grab both of those. We'll hit combine, and then we'll double click the outer bottom edge, shift double click the bottom interior edge, and we'll hit bridge. And we've got our completed box model. Now our final thing to do is that rather tedious task of beveling the edges. So we'll just shift double click, holding the shift key as I'm double clicking all the way around, and we're just getting the corner edges. This one's much easier to see than that angled version. We'll get the 4 corners, 4 edges. We'll grab this edge, shift double click that edge. We want the 4 diagonals in the corners, and we'll shift double click that edge, shift double click that edge, shift double click, and that should be it. Shift double click. We can hit the 4 key. Oh, I have forgotten these interior corner edges. There. Did I get them on this side? Nope, I missed them. Hit the 4 key again. That looks like a good selection. Take a moment to look at that. And then the only way to really know is to come and hit bevel. Our fraction is 0.2. Our segments are 2. And we'll hit the 3 key, and we don't see any anomalous edges. Everything looks good. And so there is our 1x6 plate that we'll be using for our helicopter. So pause here, produce that, and then we'll get started back in just a moment after you're done. Greetings, welcome back. We've completed our 1x6. Let's put the pivot at the bottom before we hide it away on a layer. We'll tap the D key, limit ourselves to the Y, V key, middle mouse button, tap the D key once more, and then we'll grid snap it up onto the ground plane. Take a look in the perspective view to verify that. We'll come and create a new layer and then hide that away. We'll look at our parts collection, and next on the list is our 2x8. We'll start again with our peg. We'll come up and edit duplicate special. We'll hit edit reset, and we need 7 additional copies, and this will be -4. So there is our 8 in this direction. Now we'll grab them all and come to duplicate special. We'll hit reset, and we only want 1 copy, and this would be in the -4 if we were going in this direction. We'll grab them all. They're all separate. We'll hit combine. We know that the vertexes sitting on top of one another have not been merged or welded, so we'll come to edit mesh, merge. Now we have a singular mesh, and we're going to put the pivot on the plane itself. So I'm going to hit the F key, tap the D key, right, and I want this right here. So we could hit V middle mouse button or X middle mouse button, tap the D key to get out of that, because I want to put this on the ground plane. We'll grid snap to the origin. You can verify that here, and if we take a look, right, we've got 1 set of pegs sitting out beyond our standard grid distance, but it's sitting on the ground plane and it's sitting right in the middle. And that just makes the next step of creating our interior plane just a little bit easier to see. Now let's count again, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 edges in this direction, so we'll come into the inputs for that newly created plane, and that is 4. And then we've got 16 edges in this direction. And you get the gist by now. This would be double in terms of the unit width, and 16 times 2 is 32 for that width. And so we've matched the plane, and now we'll input our fractions. You'll recall that anytime we have 2 pegs and we're matching that interior top plate, that this is 0.8, and then on this it's 0.95 on the scale Z. And we can take a look in the top view and see that that has that consistent offset. It's the same distance around. All right, we know that we'll move this down, and we're going to go down -0.8. We know that we have to reverse it, so we'll come and we'll hit reverse, and then let's go ahead and double click that outer edge, and we will extrude it. So we'll hit extrude, and this is going to be 0.8. So we've chosen 0.8 and 0.8 because our total is 1.6 for the exterior height, excluding the pegs themselves. So we move this down our standard 0.8, which we've been doing all this time, and then we arrived at this 0.8 to make a total of 1.6. And we'll see that here. We can come and grab the edge of the top, and we can hit extrude, and this is going to be -1.6, right? 0.8 and 0.8 is 1.6. And so those are matching. If you wanted to take a look here in the side view, you can see that they're exactly matching. We'll complete our thought. We'll grab both of these. We'll hit combine. And if we're in luck, we'll double click both sets of those edges and we'll hit bridge. And those bridge nicely. You may have to do 2 at a time, 2 at a time, 2 at a time, 2 at a time, and 2 at a time if that didn't bridge properly. And then our task of grabbing all the edges around, and this should be pretty simple, just like the other plate, not a lot of funny angles like on our angled brick, but just a bit of work here to get the selection all the way around. That is a nice clean click. We'll get each of the corners, and we'll get the interior diagonals in the corners. We'll get the interior corners themselves right here and right here, and we'll double click this edge, shift double click. I'm holding the shift throughout, and we've got one last one here. 4 key just to make a check before we execute. We'll hit bevel. We know that it is 0.2 and the segments are 2. We'll hit the 5 key and the 3 key, and that looks like a good hard set of edges. Nope, I missed one. I missed this edge here. I'm going to hit undo, come back to the 1 key, and I missed that edge. So I'll shift double click just to update that. That went all the way around, and that should do it. We'll hit the 3 key, and yes. So now we've got hard edges all the way around, and if we want to hide the wireframe just to see that. So here is our 2x8 brick. Give that a shot. I'll pause and come back, and we'll create the 2x6, and we'll do that with a new methodology. We'll exclude some faces and weld this back together for our 2x6. Be right back. Welcome back. We have our 2x8. Let's delete all of our history. We know that that pivots in the middle and we like it at the bottom. So in the side view, we'll tap our D key, limit ourselves to the Y, V key, middle mouse button, tap the D key again, and we can come back and see we've got that pivot on the bottom so that we can place it right on the ground plane. We'll turn the grid on here just to verify that, sitting right on the ground plane, right in the center. Now we're going to duplicate this, and we'll use this as a starting point for our 2x6 brick. We'll take our 2x8 and put that on a layer and hide it away, and then we'll just grid snap this back to the origin. Now what I'm going to do is just grab all of these faces, and if you want to take a look in the side view, you can. And we're going to delete them. That's going to leave us with these 6, this 2x3. We'll mirror this over, and that will give us a 2x6. The one thing that we want to do here first is to straighten these out. So if we look here, if I was to mirror, there would be a gap. So we have to match this. The other challenge is we've got this little tiny bevel down here. So let's start with these two. We want them to match here. I'm going to use the scale tool, and I'm just going to scale those together so now they're straight. I'll grab my move tool, tap the blue arrow, and then V snap, so now they're straight again. Let me do that again. So we're grabbing these two apart on the bevel, scale tool, we'll scale those together, so now they're straight up and down. Grab the move tool, tap the Z constraint, and we could even pull it way over there, and then V middle mouse button to there, that vertex, so now they're straight. We'll do the same with these. We'll select them all, grab the scale tool, scale them together, so now they're straight up and down, and then we'll tap this arrow, and we can just V key middle mouse button. So now we have a straight edge there, exactly on this unit. We haven't changed the units at all. Now I want to put the pivot right here, so we're going to tap the D key. I want to constrain myself on the Z, and I'm just going to hold down the V key and snap there. So that puts it right, if we look in the top view, it might be easier to see, right? It's just right on that edge. Tap the D key to get out of there, and now I can grid snap this back to the center origin. So it's sitting right on the center origin. And then let's calculate which way we would mirror. This is on the Z direction, and it's in the negative. So we'll come up to Mesh Mirror. We'll open the dialog box. This is the Z axis, and we've concluded that it's the negative direction. And so we'll hit Mirror. And now we've got our 2x6 just by making this mirrored duplicate. And we want to come to the merge threshold and just type in 0.1 so that we didn't get any vertexes. These vertexes are so close together that some of them might have been inadvertently welded. So there is our 2x6, a new method. You might want to go back and do that a few times, employ those new methods so that you can do those in the future. Okay, we'll pause here, we'll come back, and we'll create the rest of our elements. Welcome back. We've got our 2x6. We will delete all of our history. We will come and make sure that the pivot is at the bottom. We've set that on the ground plane already. We'll create a layer, hide that away. Take a look at our parts remaining, and we'll create next our plate with the post. We'll begin with our peg. And we're just going to use this peg as a starting point for that extruded post. And then our plate itself is 8 units by 8 units. So we will expand this size. We'll just grid snap these out to 8 units. And maybe a little bit easier just to do the corners first, so you can see the distance that we need to go. So this is 8 by 8, and we've got this starting point geometry for our peg. Now we'll create our plane, and if we look in the 4, we can see, right, we've got 2 edges and 2 edges. So that's our number of edges. And then we just established that it's 8 units by 8 units. So there is our new plane, matching edges, matching units, and we'll come, and in the scale X it's 0.8, and in the scale Z it's 0.8. And that gives us the proper offset around that we are looking for. We'll drive this down negative 0.8. Right, we've got that bottom interior. We know that we have to reverse it. We'll grab this edge out here, and we'll come and hit extrude, and this is going to come down on the 0.8, and that means that this extrusion would be 1.6. We'll double click it, we'll hit extrude. That is on the negative Z, so we'll say negative 1.6, 0.8 and 0.8 are 1.6. They are matching. We'll grab both of them, we'll hit combine, we'll double click this edge, shift double click the interior edge, and we'll hit bridge, and we've completed the shape. Now we want to bevel the edges. We'll start at the top, easiest to see, all the way around. We'll get our exterior corners, our interior diagonals, our edge around here, this edge, our interior edge, shift double clicking all the way around, and then these interior corners. And that should do it. A lot more straightforward than that angled brick was. And we'll hit bevel. It is 0.2 and 2. And we'll hit the 3 key, and we'll dolly around just to make sure, and that looks good. Now you certainly want to save here, because this extrusion, there are some options that you can follow, and we might want to change the size after all. So certainly want to save. Now I want to change the size of these here. I want to grab all the vertexes that are concerned here with this peg. I can just grab that central one, and then on the keyboard, Shift more than. Shift more than increases the component selection. Shift less than shrinks the component selection. So we'll come all the way to those vertexes. You can take a look. It's just the vertexes of the peg, and we can scale. Now when we scale, we don't want to grab in the middle. If I scale, I'm also scaling on the Y, and I'm pulling out is now driving the shape in, and if I were to pull scale inward to make it smaller, it's pulling it up. So when we scale, we want to limit ourselves to the X and the Z, and that's this little square here. So we can limit ourselves, and if you look, right, when we pull on that, it's not scaling on the Y. In fact, if you look, the Y is still green. Our X and Z are yellow, which means we're constrained on those axes. So I don't have a particular dimension, an exact dimension for that peg. So we'll just eyeball that, and we can come back later and make some changes. But we do want to extrude this up. So we'll grab these interior faces. Anytime you're selecting faces, hit the 4 key just to make sure you don't have something selected off the back end. We'll hit extrude, and we'll drive it up on the Z. And we want a little bit of definition up here, so we'll hit extrude again, and then I'm going to offset and just pull that up a hair. And then let's say we extrude one more time, and then we'll extrude and pull this in because it is a pipe, maybe not that large. You could be using the arrows. I'm using the translate Z and the offset, and I'm just scrubbing. And then we'll extrude once more, just to demonstrate that. I'm just going to pull down on the Z. And I don't want to come all the way down, and I am actually just eyeballing this. We could, because we're not going to see the interior, it's not super important, but I'll just pull that down, and I don't want to go beyond so that I would see that there. If we hit the 3 key, we can see that that's real soft. That's about the shape we want, but we can come and bevel all of these new edges, and we'll just do it all at once. Even this new interior. So beveled those, we'll do a fraction of 0.2 and 2, and we hit the 3 key, and we have a nice little pipe or extended peg for the rotor to sit on. All right, give that a shot, and we'll pick up on our very last piece, which is the rotor itself. Be back in a second. Welcome back. We are going to create our rotor, which may be the most challenging of the pieces, and so we'll divide this into 2 parts. But this is what we're about to create. Let's get started. We'll begin with our peg. We're going to grab the faces around the top, hit the 4 key to make sure you didn't select anything off the back. We'll come into the modeling toolkit. We'll hit extrude. We're going to offset this 0.2. We'll extrude a second time, and then we'll drive the Z negative 0.775. Remember that total height was 0.8. So 775 will give us just above penetrating that original set of faces. Now if we hit the 3 key, you can see that this is too soft. So we'll bevel this edge and shift double click and bevel that interior edge. So take a look there at the edges we have selected, and we'll hit bevel and fraction 2, segments 2, and now we've got a nice kind of interior pipe shape. You'll want to go to File, Export Selection, because we'll be using this in a variety of pieces in upcoming lessons. So you want to have this as a starting point. We'll remember that that rotor was 5 units, or 5 pieces. So we'll come, our copies would be 4, and our translate Z negative 4, and so there are our 5. We'll grab them all, we'll hit combine, and you certainly know by now that we also have to merge, and then we're going to grab this center set of faces. So I'm going to come around, maybe you even want to do this in the side view. I'm going to right click, make sure you're on the middle one. We'll grab this, and it would have been, it's not impossible, but kind of hard to grab these faces down here. So I grabbed what was easy to select, and we'll use the shift more than method. Shift more than, right? Shift more than just increases the selection, shift less than decreases. And so that's the selection that we want there. We hit delete, and we're left with what will be our post hole. And we're going to scale this up a little bit. We won't worry too much about the size because we can scale that at the end when we're matching it to the post. All right, let's extrude this down. We're going to grab the exterior edge and shift double click that edge. So we've got the exterior edge and our new circle edge. We'll hit extrude, and we're going to drive down this. We're going to drive this down half the distance of our plate. So our plates were 1.6. So let's make this 0.8. Sorry, there we go. Negative 0.8. So half the distance of a regular plate. Now we'll finish off the bottom, and we can't just bridge all the way across. So we'll grab these 4 here. Shift select these 4, whoops, and we'll hit bridge and take a look there. We'll grab these 4, shift select these 4, and hit bridge. Now the edge should be running all the way around, so we'll add an additional edge right in the middle. We'll use the multi-cut, and my snap step is set to 50. We know to engage the loop, it's Control key and then Shift key to snap. So Control key to engage the loop, you can see that there, and the Shift key to engage the snap, which is 50%, so it can only go there, and then left click. Do the same thing over here. I've got multi-cut, snap step 50, Control key, Shift key, left click, And we've got that. But these vertexes are in the same place, but they're not welded, right? There is a hole there. So we'll just go ahead and grab everything and come to Edit Mesh, Merge, and we can verify now that those have been welded together. And we've got our shape. We want to finish this here, so we'll grab, and we'll do two at a time. We'll grab those two edges and these two edges. We hit the 4 key to see that. And we'll bridge, and we have nice quads, four-sided all the way around. We'll hit bridge. We'll grab these two. I'm holding my shift key, of course, and bridge. And now I misselected there, so I'll just undo and get the proper selection and bridge. And then we'll hit the 3 key. We're eventually going to bevel the edges, but the 3 key just will let us see if we made a bad selection or if there are any unwelded or unmerged vertices. And so that looks good. We're going to delete the faces where the rest of the rotor would come out of. So we'll hit delete. And then we're going to duplicate this, and we're just going to raise it up, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees. I'm holding the J key and just rotating around, or you could type in 90 into the rotate Y. And then we also want to delete these interior faces. So sorry, we would be in the front view, and I'm going to grab these faces here, and if we come and take a look, you can see. So all the faces of that interior circle shape, and I'll hit delete because this is the one that we're using. So now you can kind of see we're going to weld these new pieces into the existing center. We'll put it back where it should be, translate Y 0. We'll grab both of those and we'll hit combine, and then we will draw a bounding box and we'll hit edit mesh merge, and we'll hit the 3 key, and that looks good. We need to bevel, but we're going to save here and save as. So I'll let you get to this point, save and save as, and then we'll come back and we'll finish the whole lesson with a couple of options for beveling. Be right back. Welcome back. Let's delete all of our history. And while we're here, let's come to Mesh Cleanup, and we'll make sure that there's no non-manifold geometry. So we're going to make sure that non-manifold geometry is selected, and then we'll hit Cleanup. Now we've got a couple of options for the bevel that we're about to create, and that's why we wanted to have this saved. And you could do either version and then just determine which one you like better. So I've got that top set of edges selected. I'll come and get the bottoms, just selecting around, shift double click all the way around. Okay, oh, and one more set, sorry. There we go, hit the 4 key, and you can see all the way around. Now, we definitely want these interior corners selected. And let's just bevel that. What I'm not selecting is these edges out here. And that'll give us a little bit of a rounded edge. So we'll hit bevel, and we'll come to 0.2 and 2, and you can hit 3, and that's a nice looking shape. If you wanted these edges to be hard, you could undo back, make sure you have them selected, and then these corners would also be hard. We'll come and I'm going to grab these faces, and let's make this a little bit, oops, sorry. I can click one and then shift double click the one next to it, and it'll get it all the way around. Let me just do that again. You click one, shift double click the one next to it, and it comes all the way around. And we're going to scale that back up. Again, we don't want to scale in the middle because that'll drive it down on the Y. Use the ZX constraint, which is green, and we're just going to scale that up a little bit. And then we want an additional set of extrusions. So I'm going to hit extrude, and then let's just drive this on the Z. And then we'll grab the bottom faces, and we'll extrude this down. Hit the 4 key And actually I did have something selected, so good thing we hit the 4 key. And then we'll hit extrude, and that's going to be driven down on the Z. The length doesn't matter, we can come back and fix this. All we want to be able to do is have the geometry, because we want to bevel this, shift double click. So I have 3 edge loops selected. This top edge loop, and then these 2 bottom ones. And we'll hit bevel, and we'll use our tried and true 0.2 and 2. And so now when we hit the 3 key, come back into object, we've got a nice shape. And I can bevel this one too. Sorry about that, I forgot this guy. We'll double click, that comes all the way around. We'll hit bevel, 0.2 and 2. And that's probably why I said 4. I was remembering 4, but I was looking at 3. And so we hit the 3 key, and we have this nice shape here. There you go. And then in the next video, we'll assemble the helicopter, rig it, animate it, and render it. Questions in the discussion. Have a good one.